Okay. Hello, everyone. Everyone, I want to just go through the Y chromosome um, scenario a little bit, only because I just want to highlight the confusion of the evolutionists and how they're off quite a bit. So here we go. Let me go with this. So here we go. We have here. What do we have here? Of course, this is the mitochondrial DNA. We have the Y. Oh, this is the mitochondria. Wait a minute. Oh, okay. The mitochondrial. This is the Y chromosome. Uh, Here's another chart here. But basically, what did I want to show you here? Hold on. This one here. No. This one here. Yeah. Okay, so this out of Africa scenario. Notice here how this is pretty clear how they want to make it. So if you want to understand what the claim is from evolution, you can see it very clear right here. Okay, it's a very clear claim right here. So what they believe that everybody, of course, came from Africa. And I'm going to show some of the contradictions here. So that you have the C, okay, this is confusing. It's not going to, you can't see it right here, but the CT means C to everybody else, which is included all the way to T. But the problem here is that they have the C being the progenitor of the D and the E. Now, the C very possibly could be the progenitor of D, although I think it might be a brother. Okay, so we have the C here, and then we have the F here. So this is what the thing, this is the out of Africa belief. So we have here Africa. We have here out of Africa because the C and the D are out of Africa. So, and hence the reason for out of Africa. And then we got this green here, which is Australia, which is a CY chromosome. So these are the main groupings here. Of course, this is all one family tree. The A, B, C, D, and E is all one family tree. They're all together. Now the F, G, H, I, J are another tree. And then there's a K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T is the third tree, which would be the Japhethite tree. So we have the Hamite tree, the Shemite tree, and the Japhethite tree. But they're trying to say that this one produced this one, which produced this one, and so on. And that's what the claim is. And you can see here the progression here, all the way to Q. Of course, there's Q in Asia too, but they're saying the Q is American and Asian, and of course the R is over here in Europe. And you have the I over here in Europe, and the J, and the G, and the H. So the Semitic population would be the F, G, H, I, and J is basically the Semitic population. The Japhethite population is the L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T. Those are the Japhethite populations. Remember, the Bible says Japheth went north. And in the beginning, when you had the Sumerian populations, or with were basically here, and the Japhethites were up in this area. The Japhethites were north, Anyway, so the Japhethites tended to spread east, and of course some of them went north and west because the Bible says Japhethite went north, which is basically from here north, north, north. But they spread all the way over to the Americas. And then this out of Africa thing, with this out of Africa claim, you have the sea, which is the Mongolians, but it's a whole huge population here, which began here in Mesopotamia, because that's where everyone started out from. And then the C's went this way, the D's down here, the Andamanese, or went here in the Andamanese Islands, and then up here in Tibet, and over here in Japan is the D. So we know where the C's are. And of course the C's went all the way to America too. And the C's are all the way in the Pacific Islands too. And of course in Australia. But this is clearly showing what the claim is. So remember now, you have the B and the C are said to be offshoots from the A. So the B and the C, and of course the CT means C all the way to the end, T, which we'll see later. And the DE, somehow the E became a descendant of C, and the D became a descendant of C. So it's a little bit out of order here. Considering that the E is a huge population in Africa, it's the majority population. The A and the B are in extremities and not the majority population. Because the majority populations are here, you can see them here. You have the E's, Phoenicians, the E's, the Egyptians, and the E's, the Cushites. And then down here, you have the E's in Africa, and then you have the A and the B. And so the A's and the B are not a huge, it's not a huge population. Of course, you got an E2 way down here, and you got E1s up here. And E3s over here, E3, they have them ordered backwards, basically E3A, and then they got E3B. When in reality, these are the initial populations. These are the original populations, the E's. And they're all E's because they're all brothers, sons of Ham. So they're all E's. And of course there's Canaan too, which is also an E probably. But the E2 something or other. But anyways, these are major populations. These should be in the trees, and they seem to be excluded. They like to highlight the A's and the B's, and then the E, they highlight the E2s and the E1s, but sometimes they even exclude the E3s. For example, as I said, notice here we have the E2, the E1s, and the E1s. Okay, what happened to the major population of the E3s? If you had the E3s in here, they would be branching all the way from down here, because of course they would show that the C's came from the E3. So that would be, well, it's a prediction of mine, but it would be kind of conspiratorial if they showed that, because it goes against the narrative. And of course the A's and the B's came from the E3 too. and the C's came from the E3s. The D came from the E3s, and everything else came from the E3s. Because the E3s are the major populations: the Phoenicians, the Egyptians, and the Cushites, and then there's the Canaanites that are E2 something. Okay, and then you have the separation here between this tree, which is the African tree, which is the C. Of course, this is a genetic distance chart, and this shows clearly that the C does not belong, or these trees did not come from this C tree. Now, this is very important to understand. This tree here of G, H, I, and J did not come from the C tree. You can clearly see it with this genetic distance family tree. But that's what the claim is. Remember, the claim was that the G, the F and the D and the E came from the C. But that's not what it shows here. There's a huge genetic distance between this tree here and this tree here. And there's another genetic distance between this Japhethite tree and this Hamite tree with a Japhethite tree. There's another genetic distance right there, another separation. And there seems to be a separation here between the Semitic population and the Abrahamic population, which would be the J's and the I's. The J's and I's, I'm pretty sure, are the Abrahamic population, which is basically their own tree. And the reason why I include the I is because there is such a thing as the lost tribes of Israel that went into Europe, and because they're found together, the J and the I are found together in the Americas, along with the G, along with the T, which is Japhethite, but is associated with Jewish people often. And which seems to be very early on, somehow. So somehow, the Jewish people associated with this TY chromosome early on, and this a significant population in America and the Jewish people today. So that's how I know that. Okay, so remember what the claim is. The claim is the out of Africa that the C, the D and E came from the C, which we just saw it's not the case. Okay, nowhere here does the D or the E come from the C. Now, is it clear? The D and the E's do not come from the C. Neither does anything else come from the sea. So that claim is wrong. And I'm going to show a contradiction here from a secular source. Now this one here shows kind of the same thing. It shows okay, this is what I was showing before, the A through T, the B through T, the C through T, the F through T, and then it should be the K through T too, but they forgot to put the T here. They got the LT over here, but then I guess they forgot what they were doing. They didn't put the K through T. But that's what they're trying to show, that this branch is A through T, which is here, B through T, C through T, F through T. Okay, C through T, except that the D and the E did not come from the sea. Because we saw here in this chart, the D and the E do not come from the sea. They're the separate family tree. And in fact, if they had the E3s, it would show that the C and the D's came from the E3s, because the E3s are the major populations. So that's what they believe. They believe that's why they ordered them that way, because they believe that Africa was the original one. So they kind of made it backwards. They start with A1, B1, A2, A3, and then they go B2 and E1 and E2, and then they got the E3. The E3s here. Of course, these E3s are from basically sub-Saharan Africans, which are descendants of Kush. The dark-skinned sub-Saharan Africans are descended from Kush. That's why they're E3. Anyway, but notice they have it backwards. It's E3A, and this is E3B1. So when they go here, they're going about it backwards, but they're starting off with the sub-Saharan African because they believe that they're going to show another contradiction too. They believe that all of these trees here came from this tree here, which is nonsense, as you can see here. But the other contradiction is that they think that these families here that came from Africans have less mutations than these Africans themselves. Because if we came from Africans, we'd have the African mutations plus other mutations if we actually came from Africans. That would make sense. But somehow they think that's the most original line, just because there's more mutations. But the reality is that this is not a determination. This is not a measure of age. It's a measure of mutations, the number of mutations. Because all these family trees here are all the same age. They're all the same age because they're people that were tested today, recently. So we know that everybody came from the same origin, so we're not different ages. If indeed we came from the Africans, we should have the same amount of mutations as the Africans, or more. Or these Africans here, these Africans in particular. But it's more a rate of reproduction than an age. Okay, so anyway, see. So here's the contradiction now. Let me show you the contradiction. Remember this one here? Where is it? This out of Africa, C turns to D and E, and C turns to F. Okay. Now notice the contradiction here. In this diagram, which it looks to me more recent, we have again the A, the B, the D, and the E, and the C's. Okay. Now, except in this diagram, you don't have any of these, you don't have the D or the E's branching from the C. Do you see that? The C is off here on its own tree over here, and the D and the E's are off in their own tree over here. So this tree over here, the D's and the E's are separate from the C's. And then the F is separate, branches off from the C. So the F is separate from the C. But they're trying to say the F came from the C, but that's only because the C is out of Africa. But notice the D is over here on its own tree with E. So it's a clear contradiction right there compared to this picture here. Because in this picture here, you have the C's producing the D and the E and the F. And over here, the C's are on its own tree. The E's and the D's are on their own tree. And my prediction would be that the D came from the E, as did the C. The C came from the E's too. But this is only showing the E2. The E still only showing. See, this is what really annoys me. They're still only showing the E2, the E1, and the E1. You know, do you see what they're doing here? They're not showing the E3. So we got the DO. There's Nigerian. There's Nigerians that are DO. And then we have the D's that are the Tibetans and the Andamanese and the Japanese. They're not even showing the Andamanese here, but they're the Tibetans and the Japanese. And there's DO is Nigerian, the way they have DO. But if we go to this other tree, let's see this other tree. This one here. We can see the amount of time that the DOs are here. See, this ancestry, this age doesn't go back in time very much. So that's an indication to me that these DOs went into Africa from the island nations, because you have the D's are largely in the island nations, but then you have this one D branch which doesn't go back in time very far, which are the Nigerians. So somehow they left these island nations and they went back in at a later date. They went into Africa because this doesn't go back in time, see, very far. So in other words, the E goes way back in time, but the D doesn't go way back in time in Africa. So, but notice how they have the D and the E coming from the C, T. Actually in this one it's coming from the B, because this is the B here. So actually they're having the D coming from the B and the C branching off here. But in this one, this other one, whichever one it was, they have the D coming from the C, which is another contradiction. See, you got the D coming from the the CT, which would be the B. So that would be the D's coming from the B, the D and the E's coming from the B. So that's basically the same thing, I guess. But it's not coming from the C, which this they're trying to say the Europeans came from the sea. So I guess that's what they mean by that. But this is the A. This is saying the A produced the B and the D and the E's. It's not even coming from the B. Oh, it is a contradiction. Anyways, this one has the D and the E coming from the B. But anyways, the fact is they don't know where it's coming from because this is the genetic distance chart, and the A, the B, the C, and the D all belong to their own tree. As we can see here from the genetic distance chart, and there's a big gap between this tree and this tree. But then again, you have the E2, the E1, and the E1B, then you don't have the major populations or the original populations, which are the Cushites, the Egyptians, and the Phoenicians. Those are the original population. The Phoenicians from Put, the Egyptians from Mitzrayim, and the Cushites from Cush. And of course, the sub-Saharan Africans are E3. Of course, see, they're still E3. They have them in reverse order: E3A, E3A, instead of E3B, because they put it backwards. But they're still sub-Saharan Africans descended from Cushites. Same thing with the A and the B, which is in the backward order, because all these populations came from this population here, the sub-Saharan Africans, the dark-skinned Africans. But this is good because it identifies the CY chromosome as being from the same family tree as the E3. But they are afraid. They're afraid to put the E3 into these diagrams here, because the E3 will show that the D came from the E3 and the C came from the E3. That's why they're not showing the E3. Little conspiracy there. I mean, the E3s are the major populations, major original known human populations from Mesopotamia, which is Put, Phoenicians. Phoenicians are a known people. Egyptians are a known people. And the Cushites are a known people. And they all came from Mesopotamia. And the C, which is Nimrod, who was the son of Cush, never went to Africa. And his household, the household of Cush, the household of Nimrod, never went to Africa. And the D seems to have gone to Africa at a later date, although this is Nigerian. That's pretty deep into Africa. So, but even so, it's showing here that it doesn't go far back into time. as compared with the rest of the sub-Saharan Africans, the A, the B, the E. And of course, the E3 is not all sub-Saharan African anyway, but it doesn't show. They don't show the E3. So that's the thing. And of course, not to forget, in America, you have America's the brown. You have the Q. You have the R in America that came from Europe. The Q in America that came from Europe. Oh, what's this? We got the T in America that is Japhethite, but is also associated with the Jewish people. You have the J1 in America, the J2 in America, which is associated with the Jewish people. The I1 and the I2 also associated with the Jewish people. And the G. The G is Semitic, but it's also associated with the Jewish people in America. So we have this interesting evidence here of Jewish people in America. That might explain some of the Hebrew writings in America. It's right here, DNA. America. See, America, this color? It's America. Of course, you have this is also in Europe, the I1. The I1, the I2 is in Europe. And the J1, the J2 is in the these areas here. It's even in India too. Okay, J1, J2. We got J2 in India pretty. That's a lot of. It's a lot of J2 in India. Well, of course, Thomas. We know Thomas went to India, and apparently a lot of people are descended from the Jewish people that went with Thomas, but that's interesting. You have the Dravidians too. The H is in India. And the I1, the I2 are largely associated with Europe. A little bit with this area here, which is Eastern Europe. So, and we have this yellow color, which is, of course, the Middle East. Of course, you would have the J1, the J2 in the Middle East, and the T. There's the T again in the Middle East. The L and the G. And, of course, the G too, because the G is Semitic. Of course, these H's are in India and China. And these H's, they're Semitic too. And you got a lot of F's too. The F's would be, okay, the F's are more in this area here, in the Pacific Island area. Okay, but that's about, it's, after a while you get to understand the description of the people. The Japhethites are mostly in the east. The MNOQRs, S's, and T's are in the east, and of course the R's are in Europe, and of course in the north, which would be the area of the Japhethites. And the Semitic population is this area here in the Middle East, plus they went into Europe, of course they're along the banks here of the Mediterranean too. in Italy and in places because they traveled extensively through the Mediterranean as well. So that's where you find the J's and the I's too. The I's, same thing. Okay, but notice here again how they separate the C from the E's and the D's. But that's only because they don't have the E3. If they had the E3, that would precede any of these E's, and it would precede the C's and the D's, and of course the A's and the B's. But they don't want to show that. So that's what the problem is. Because it's conspicuous that the major populations, known human migrations of the Phoenicians, the Egyptians, and the Cushites, who are descended from 3 different sons of Ham, with the addition of Canaan, who is the son of Ham. These 3 major populations, and they're not even included in any of the diagrams. Because if they were, they would show that that all the rest of the African family tree descended from the E3s. And of course, these are all brothers. They're brothers. This is Put, his brother is Mitzrayim, his brother is Cush, and their other brother is Canaan. They're all brothers. That's why they're all E3. They're the same family tree, and everyone else descended from them. You know whose son is Cush? Cush had a son, too. You know who his son is? His son is named Nimrod. He had a kingdom in the land of Shinar, and his descendants never went to Africa. They're the only possible CY chromosome, which belongs to the African family tree, is the descendants of the house of Nimrod. It's the only possibility for the C3. Unless it was D, which it probably was the D because the house of Nimrod was in this area and they went east instead of west. Because he was king over the whole world. Nimrod was king of the whole world. He didn't go to Africa. His father went to Africa, but he didn't go to Africa because he was king of the whole world, basically. So he had his kingdom until Esau allegedly killed him, and then the kingdoms of Nimrod fell, and the house of Nimrod became subdued for a time. But there was a house of Nimrod, and you can see the result of it with the CY chromosome spreading through the rest of the world, through the entire rest of the world, east all the way to the northern tip of South America, to the Waorani Indians, which was the most violent tribal people on earth, who accepted Jesus and had their life changed. Their life was changed, and their culture was changed, and they went from having a homicide rate of 60% to, I mean, within the tribe, homicide rate, their own tribe, 60% murder rate, to basically no homicides. I mean, to speak of, by comparison. And I've done many videos on the Waorani people. And so we know that if the gospel can save the house of Nimrod, who is basically the most wicked king there ever was, because all the people were wicked, not just Nimrod. They were all wicked, but Nimrod was wicked, and all his descendants were wicked. So if the gospel can help the descendants of Nimrod, then he can help the rest of us too. And that's the rest of the story, the history. And of course, can't go without mentioning the fact that this is me right here. I'm an I1 M253. That's what I am. And these are the basically the Vikings and Anglo-Saxons that invaded England, and that's where my family comes from. I mean, my family name comes from this area in Scotland. So that's the rest of that story. And so I find it very interesting that my Y chromosome, the I1, is found in America. This brown I1 is actually not a whole lot, but it is found in America. Of course, there's I2 too. I1, I2, which is an offshoot of the same family, and then the J1 and the J2 are also from the same family, along with the T and the G, which is associated with the Jewish people. But the way they want to represent it here as being A through T, B through T, C through T, F through T, and K through T, which they forgot, is not the fact, because according to the this evidence here, the A through E, A, B, C, D, E, belong to their own tree. The F is on another tree. See the F and the F2? It's an entirely different tree, totally unassociated with the African family tree, totally unassociated with the Africans. So we did not proceed from Africans. We did not descend from Africans. We have our own family tree that branched off from the African at the the cradle of civilizations, where you had the three sons of Noah, which are Shem, Ham, the Africans, and Japheth, which is the Europeans, the ones that went north. So there you have it, and the same thing can be said of the mitochondrial too, the mitochondrial DNA, same thing. This is the L. You have the L, M, and the N's. This is confusing too, but that's what it is, L, M, N. So the L is one tree. You can see it's one tree, the L, by itself. The L never left Africa. They remained in Africa, went to Africa, remained in Africa. All descendants of Egyptus, which is Mitzrayim's mother. Mitzrayim, who founded Egypt, his mother, her name is Egyptus, hence the name Egypt. Okay, not complicated. The Phoenicians, everybody, they're all descendants of the L. And then you have the M's, which I believe the M's are Japhethites. And the H's, I mean the N's are the seem to be the Semitic mitochondrial maternal line, the wife of Shem. So the mother of the Shemites appears to be in, just by its location where it's found and everything like that. even though it's found through basically the whole world, it seems to be more associated with the wife of Shem than it does the wife of Japheth. But either way, it doesn't matter. If we could prove otherwise, it doesn't make a difference. It is what it is. There's still different separate family trees because there's a space between here, this tree, and this tree, and there's a space between this tree and this tree. So they're completely different trees. Three different trees, mitochondrial DNA, same thing. Same thing as the Y chromosome. There's one tree here, another tree here, and the other tree, there's a space here, and there's another tree here. And of course, keeping in mind that Shem and Japheth were brothers, so that's why they're so close genetically at the beginning. But their descendants made different trees. You can't, if you belong to this tree, you belong to this tree. You can't belong to another tree. It's just not possible because you're ID'd as having come or belonging to a certain tree. So whatever your Y chromosome is, that's who you are. If you're European, you have an RY chromosome, then you belong to the Japhethite family tree, paternal line family tree. If you have another one, an I, a J, or a G, you belong to the Semitic family, paternal family tree. If you have a CY chromosome, which many people do in the island nations, and some people even made it back to places like Puerto Rico. You have a CY chromosome because of how far it spread and the the travel industry, the sailing industry was to the east and came back, of course, to the west. So many of the island nations might have a CY chromosome, which is a direct descendant from Nimrod. So if you have a CY chromosome, you are directly descended from King Nimrod, who is the king of the whole world. That's a fact. And mtDNA proves it. So there we go. There's contradictions of the out of Africa theory. The C or the D and the E coming from the, I don't know what this is, E or the A. I'm trying to say the A. The E and the D came from the A. It's all confusing, but anyway. That's not the case according to this tree here. According to this tree here, the C is totally separate on its own by itself, and then F branches off. Notice this F here? This F is a completely new branch. And of course we know that genetically, originally, it wasn't that much different from the progenitor of the C, which was E3. So you have the E3 that had a son C, and the E3 had a brother Shem, who is the father of the F, G, H, I, and J. So that's and then there's the K element OPQRST, which would be the Japhethites. So let me see what's going on. If anything's going on, I don't know. So let me see. Oh, we got lots of people. We got faithful, honest, and true. Great to see you. Faithful, honest, and true. Great to see you. Evos are Nimrod. Egypt, I feel like having been gypted. Okay, dokie dokie. Hello, and Blackfoot. Hey, Blackfoot. What am I talking about? I'm talking about DNA. Doki is here, soccer. Contradictions, core. Yep. Lots of contradiction. They got redefined living. They got Erica, got Jeremy, got lots of people here. And I'm just talking by myself here, ignoring everybody, but glad to see everybody here. Evo's wish three sons of Noah didn't explain data better than their story. Yep. I mean, this is my point. I think that they want to be a scientist. They have to study human history before they try to be a scientist, because otherwise they'll be putting their foot in their mouth. That's just basically it. So it's great to see everybody here. Blackfoot, if you would like to have a discussion with me, I would be interested. I'd be open to it. If you're still here and you want to have a discussion, let me know. I'll let you in. We can talk about it. Um, and Jim, how you doing? Jim Brock. JJ, have a great Christmas. Thank you. You too. Likewise, Jim. Have a great Christmas, you and everyone, and enjoy the holidays, because of our fleeting moments we have here on Earth. Enjoy time with your family and make the best of it, and then get back to work fighting evolutionism. So I even had a visit from Raw Matt. Okay. So let me see. If anybody, I guess nobody wants to have a discussion. Blackfoot doesn't want to have a discussion with me. Are you a Native American Indian? Because I discussed a little bit about the DNA of Native American Indians, which are mostly Q, but there's quite a bit of C, and there's even the Jewish Y chromosomes, which are J, I, and G and T, all found in America, all identified with the Jewish people, which is very interesting. Okay, so that's about it. I guess I'll wrap it up. And hope everybody has a great Christmas, of course. But stay true to God, stay true to reality, what the truth is, because of course Christians believe in the truth. So it has to be true, what we believe in. Thank you, Doki, Jim, Faithful, Honest, and True, everybody, Blackfoot, Raw Matt, Erica, Redefined Living, Jeremy, Martin. Everybody have a great Christmas. God bless you. Stay true to God's word, which is the absolute truth. That's what we believe in. We believe truth. Signing over. Over. Over and out.